No video has ever had more research conducted, more experts consulted. Very simply, more time and resources went into this video than the psyops and proxy wars that this video will be discussing. So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we will be discussing the top 5 military conflicts that the United States participated in which Congress did not officially declare war, which you may or may not know hasn't happened since World War II. Since the end of World War II, in us changing our high T Secretary of War into the low T Secretary of Defense, instead of declaring war, what our government has instead been using is the term authorization for the use of military force, which is basically the same as me saying, no, I'm not making a video, I'm just talking into a camera, with the intentions of putting the camera's recording on the internet for screen points. Bureaucratic nonsense terms or not, we have been authorizing the use of military force for essentially every waking moment since World War II ended. And I have spent an equivalent amount of time scouring this list to give you my hand-curated list of only the best military conflicts. Number one, of course, being the war in Iran. Now, as we go through this list, you will notice that many of these conflicts were either justified by completely fake or fabricated events, or themselves were entirely a psyop. This one goes a little bit deeper. See, the question that the media presents us with is not the question we really should be asking. What does the media present us with? They say, are there weapons of mass destruction in Iran? When in reality, the question we should be asking is, are there Iran? Now, out of all the research I've done, in my professional opinion, based on, again, countless hours of research, on-site investigation, I have little to no reason that the country of Iran actually exists. So, number 2, the Bay of Pigs. Now, the Bay of Pigs has a silly made-up name, which is very fitting because the entire thing was unironically a psyop. As I'm given to understand it, basically what happened is the CIA attempted to stage an uprising to remove Fidel Castro from power, and they tried to do this by equipping US soldiers to look like Cuban defectors, stationing them in Nicaragua where they would then conduct a raid on Cuba. Now, I guess the attempt was to do it like this in order to hide the United States' involvement as to not anger the Soviets while still creating an uprising that would theoretically remove Castro from power. But the mission failed entirely because it turned out that both the Cubans and the Soviets knew it was happening, and also agents at the CIA knew that they knew. But then they conducted it anyways, because I guess the actual psyop was not the Cuban rebellion, but instead it was to try to get JFK to do a full invasion of Cuba. So it was basically a psyop within a psyop. But basically, the only tangible outcome of all of this tomfoolery conducted by our intelligence agencies was that Cuba began to rely on Russia more for security, which led to Russia placing nuclear weapons on Cuba, which of course led to the Cuban Missile Crisis, which would have been total nuclear war if it weren't for one dude who decided not to pull the trigger. TLDR, CIA tries to remove a politician, almost starts nuclear war. We love our alphabet, boys, don't we, folks? Number 3, the Korean War. Now, the Koreans, after World War II, were very neatly divided at the 38th parallel, which you will see is actually a very common theme with our proxy wars in Asian countries. But basically, very neat border at the 38th parallel, and then a couple years of fighting and complicated nonsense later, including Russians literally fighting Americans, except the Russians are dressed up like the Chinese. The border ends up getting changed to this, where it remains today. Now, I get it, domino effect, Koreans are an OP defensive class, yada yada yada. You turned a straight line into a squiggly one. Nice job, everybody. Number 4, Vietnam. Now, right off the bat, when you ask someone how long the Vietnam War was, there will be a literal decade of disparity between the answers, which to me makes absolutely no sense. But again, we have a country divided north and south evenly at the 17th parallel, a ceasefire line which was a cope. Don't take it from me, take it from this guy. Literally every aspect of the Vietnam War is a cope. The Gulf of Tonkin was a cope. The 17th parallel ceasefire line that expired in 1956 was a cope. The L1A1, an exotic cope coming out of Australia, yet still a cope. The Gulf of Tonkin was a cope. Never happened. The domino effect, which we discussed earlier, which many of you know to be parallel to the Hutt effect, evidently a cope, because look, did we stop various Asian countries from falling to communist regimes? Not really. They captured Saigon, renamed it after Ho Chi Minh. So we lost the actual war. But then a couple years later, they basically became capitalist anyways. So does this mean that all of our efforts were successful in stopping the spread of communism? No, not really. Because while we were overseas invading actual places, what was really getting invaded was our intellectual spaces. So, number 5, last but not least, the invasion of Panama, which I'm just going to go ahead and ask you to do me a favor and not look that one up because we love the CIA. The CIA is really cool. Thank you for watching the video. Like, comment, subscribe, Instagram, Twitter. Bye.